Imagine places so perfect they seem to have come straight out of a fairy tale. Villages hidden among snow-covered mountains, colorful houses reflected in crystal-clear canals, stone streets that carry centuries of history, and landscapes so surreal they make anyone question whether they're real. In this video, we're going to travel through some of the most enchanting corners of the planet to discover the most beautiful villages on Earth. From tiny, isolated communities in the Alps to seaside villages with breathtaking views, each destination holds a unique atmosphere, fascinating traditions, and scenery that looks like living paintings. Get ready to discover places where time slows down and beauty lives in every detail. Grab your imaginary passport, because this journey around the world is only just beginning. Hidden between towering mountains and resting on the shores of a crystal-clear lake, Hallstatt feels like a place created by pure imagination. This small Austrian village is considered by many to be one of the most beautiful places on Earth, and it only takes one photo to understand why. The colorful wooden houses reflect on the calm water, while the Alps surround the village like a cinematic backdrop. During winter, snow transforms everything into a true fairy tale. In summer, flowers cover the balconies, making the streets even more charming. Hallstatt also holds an incredible history. The region is home to one of the oldest salt mines in the world, with more than 7,000 years of activity. It was salt that brought wealth and importance to the village for centuries. Walking through its narrow streets feels like stepping back in time, passing historic churches, small squares, and breathtaking viewpoints. But perhaps the most impressive thing is the peaceful atmosphere of the place. Even with visitors arriving from all over the world, Hallstatt still preserves that quiet, magical feeling of a village lost in the mountains. It's the kind of destination that makes anyone stop for a few seconds just to admire the scenery and think, how can a place like this really exist? Imagine a village where streets barely exist. In Giethoorn, in the Netherlands, canals replace roads, and boats take the place of cars. Silence is one of the first things people notice in this magical place, interrupted only by the sound of water and birds nearby. Known as the Dutch Venice, this small village looks like it came directly from a fantasy film. The houses of Giethoorn are a spectacle of their own. Many featured traditional thatched roofs, perfectly maintained gardens, and small wooden bridges connecting the village pathways. During spring, flowers make the scenery even more colorful, creating an almost surreal landscape. Taking a boat ride through the canals is the best way to explore the village, slowly passing hidden corners and peaceful views that resemble living paintings. Despite its quiet appearance, Giethoorn welcomes visitors from all around the world searching for this unique experience. And even with all its fame, the village still preserves a warm and simple atmosphere. It's the kind of place where time completely slows down, making you forget the noise and rush of big cities. In Giethoorn, everything feels lighter, calmer, and unbelievably more beautiful. In the heart of Japan's mountains lies a village that seems to defy time itself. Shirakawa-go is famous for its traditional houses called gasho-zukuri, built with enormous steep roofs that resemble hands joined in prayer. This design is not only beautiful, it was created to withstand the heavy snowfall that covers the region during winter. And it's precisely during this season that the village transforms into one of Japan's most magical landscapes. When snow blankets the rooftops and the house lights begin to glow at dusk, Shirakawa-go looks like an enchanted town hidden among the mountains. The scenery is so breathtaking that the village became a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Some of these buildings are over 250 years old and are still inhabited by local families, preserving ancient traditions passed down through generations. But Shirakawa-go is not only impressive in winter. During summer, green fields and rice paddies create a completely different landscape, full of life and tranquility. Walking through the village feels like stepping into another century, where life continues at a simple pace, deeply connected to nature. It's one of those rare places capable of transmitting peace simply through the way it exists, keeping a precious part of Japanese history alive. In the English countryside, there is a village so charming that many consider it the most beautiful in the country. Bibury feels frozen in time, with its narrow streets, small streams, and ivy-covered stone cottages creating a picture-perfect English setting. The village's greatest symbol is Arlington Row, a line of cottages built in the 14th century that has become one of the most photographed landscapes in the United Kingdom. Walking through Bibury feels like entering an old painting. The golden stone buildings glow beautifully at sunrise and late afternoon, while the perfectly maintained gardens make everything feel even more welcoming. The River Colne flows gently through the village, reflecting trees, stone bridges, and graceful swans that complete the peaceful atmosphere. Despite its small size, Bibury carries centuries of history. Originally, many of its buildings were used for wool production, an activity that brought prosperity to the region during the Middle Ages. Today, the village attracts visitors from around the world precisely because it has preserved this classic and almost untouched appearance. What stands out most is the overwhelming sense of calm that fills the air. No matter the season, Bibury always feels wrapped in a cozy and nostalgic atmosphere, as if every corner holds old stories waiting to be discovered. Perched high on the cliffs of Santorini, Oya is one of those villages that feels almost impossible to exist in real life. The famous white houses with blue domes create a stunning contrast against the deep blue waters of the Aegean Sea, forming one of the most recognizable landscapes on Earth. Every sunset, thousands of people fall silent just to watch the sky change colors above the crystal-clear waters of Greece. Oya's narrow, winding streets are filled with small cafes, charming hotels, and breathtaking viewpoints. Walking through the village is a constant visual experience. Around every corner appears another incredible view of the cliffs, boats sailing in the distance, and whitewashed buildings that seem to blend into the clouds. At night, the glowing lights transform the village into an even more magical setting. But Oya also carries marks of its history. The island was shaped by a massive volcanic eruption thousands of years ago, responsible for the enormous cliffs that now surround the region. This volcanic origin created unique landscapes that turned Santorini into one of the world's most desired destinations. Even with all its fame, Oya still maintains a peaceful and romantic atmosphere. It's the kind of place where every detail seems designed to enchant, leaving you with the feeling that you're looking at a perfect piece of the Mediterranean. In northeastern France lies a village that seems to have stepped straight out of the pages of a children's fairy tale. Colmar enchants visitors with its colorful half-timbered houses, flower-lined canals, and cobblestone streets that create a completely magical atmosphere. Many say the village inspired scenes from movies and animated films, and it's not hard to understand why. One of Colmar's most famous areas is known as Little Venice, where small boats glide slowly through canals surrounded by historic buildings decorated with flowers in every window. During spring and summer, the village becomes even more vibrant with color everywhere. In winter, the Christmas markets transform Colmar into a glowing spectacle, attracting visitors from all over the world. Beyond its beauty, Colmar also carries a strong cultural heritage. The region blends French and German influences, something visible both in the architecture and in the local cuisine. Walking through its streets feels like traveling to another era, surrounded by perfectly preserved medieval buildings and charming squares. What makes Colmar truly remarkable is how everything seems carefully designed to enchant. Every bridge, every colorful facade, and every tiny detail helps create a warm and almost surreal atmosphere. It's the kind of village that makes anyone feel as if they've stepped inside a fantasy story. Amid the dramatic landscapes of northern Norway, Ryan emerges as one of the most breathtaking villages on the planet. Surrounded by towering mountains that seem to rise directly from the sea, this small fishing community in the Lofoten Islands combines wild nature with almost unbelievable beauty. The traditional red cabins scattered along the coastline create the perfect contrast against the icy waters and skies often painted in golden and bluish tones. During winter, Rhine transforms into a surreal landscape. Snow covers the mountain peaks while the northern lights dance above the village, creating a natural spectacle that feels impossible to describe. In summer, the midnight sun keeps the sky illuminated for hours, making the scenery feel even more magical. Despite its cinematic appearance, Rhine remains a simple fishing village deeply connected to the sea, a tradition that has sustained the region for centuries. Walking through the small harbors and watching the boats gently sway in the water creates a rare feeling of peace and isolation. What makes Rhine truly fascinating is the sensation of standing at the edge of the world. Here, nature completely dominates the landscape, making everything feel bigger, quieter, and more intense. It's one of those places that reminds people just how extraordinary our planet can be. In southern Italy, there is a village so unusual that it feels like the setting of a fantasy world. Alberobello is famous for its truly small white buildings with cone-shaped stone roofs that make the landscape completely unique. Seen from above, the village looks like hundreds of fairy tale houses scattered across the hills of the Puglia region. These curious structures hold a fascinating history. The Trulli were built centuries ago using stones fitted together without cement, a traditional technique that allowed residents to quickly dismantle the houses to avoid taxes at the time. Today, many of them have been transformed into cafes, shops, restaurants, and charming guest houses while still preserving their original appearance. Walking through Alberobello's narrow streets feels like entering another world. The symbols painted on the rooftops, the flowers in the windows, and the glow of the white walls under the Italian sun create a warm and unforgettable atmosphere. At night, soft lights make the village feel even more enchanting. The village became a UNESCO World Heritage Site precisely because it preserves this rare architectural style that exists almost nowhere else on Earth. Alberobello is proof that even the simplest buildings can create extraordinary beauty when tradition, history, and imagination come together in the same place.
At first glance, Popeye Village looks like a place pulled straight out of a cartoon. And in a way, that's exactly what it is. Located in a small bay surrounded by turquoise waters in Malta, this village was originally built as the set for the Popeye movie in the 1980s. What was meant to be just a film set eventually became one of the country's most curious and charming destinations. The colorful wooden houses spread across the hillside create a playful landscape unlike any other village in the Mediterranean. Everything feels intentionally exaggerated: crooked windows, uneven rooftops, and quirky little buildings that give the place an almost magical appearance. Walking through the village feels like stepping into a fictional universe where every detail was designed to spark nostalgia and imagination. Beyond the village itself, the surrounding natural scenery makes everything even more impressive. The contrast between the crystal-clear waters, Malta's cliffs, and the colorful buildings creates the perfect cinematic setting. During summer, the sea turns into intense shades of blue that make the place look even more surreal. But what makes Popeye Village truly fascinating is its unlikely origin. Very few movie sets remain alive for so long and manage to transform into such a unique tourist destination. It's one of those places that proves how cinema and reality can sometimes blend together in surprising ways.
In the heart of Germany lies a medieval village so perfectly preserved that it feels frozen in time. Rotenburg ob der Tauber enchants visitors with its ancient walls, historic towers, and cobblestone streets that transport anyone directly into the Middle Ages. Walking through its narrow alleys feels like stepping into a historical film, surrounded by colorful, half-timbered houses and buildings that have survived centuries, almost untouched. The town becomes even more charming during winter, when lights and Christmas markets transform the place into a true fairy tale setting. Many people believe Rotenburg inspired villages seen in animated films and classic stories, precisely because of its incredibly picturesque appearance. Every corner seems carefully designed to amaze. Beyond its beauty, the village also carries a fascinating history. For centuries, Rotenburg was an important medieval trading city, and much of its original structures survived wars and conflicts through time. From the top of the city walls, visitors can admire the reddish rooftops forming an almost perfect landscape. But perhaps the most memorable part is the atmosphere itself. Unlike modern and hectic cities, Rotenburg radiates a rare sense of tranquility and nostalgia. The sound of footsteps on the stone streets, the ancient clocks, and the medieval scenery create the feeling that time has completely slowed down inside this enchanting German village.
Hidden along the banks of the vault of a river, Český Krumlov feels like a medieval town that crossed centuries without losing its soul. Located in the Czech Republic, this small village captivates visitors with its cobblestone streets, colorful historic buildings, and a massive castle overlooking the entire landscape from atop to hill. Seen from above, the village resembles a carefully crafted setting for a period film. The historic center of Český Krumlov is a true labyrinth of narrow alleys, small squares, and cozy cafes. The river curves around the village, creating breathtaking views in almost every direction. During sunset, the reddish rooftops glow with golden tones that make the town even more beautiful. Český Krumlov Castle is one of the largest in Central Europe and holds centuries of history. Its gardens, towers, and ancient corridors help create the feeling that time truly stopped there. It's easy to imagine knights, merchants, and artists walking through the same streets hundreds of years ago. But what makes Český Krumlov truly special is its atmosphere. Even as a famous destination, the village maintains a peaceful and romantic mood, especially at night when the lights reflect on the river and the streets grow quiet. It's one of those places that makes anyone feel inside an old story filled with charm and mystery.
High on a mountaintop overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, Easy seems to float between the sky and the ocean. This small medieval village on the French Riviera enchants visitors with its narrow stone streets, ancient flower-covered buildings, and absolutely breathtaking panoramic views. Every corner of the village offers scenery worthy of a postcard. Walking through Easy feels like exploring a medieval labyrinth suspended above the sea. The winding alleys lead past small art galleries, hidden gardens, and historic houses built centuries ago. The quiet streets, combined with the Mediterranean breeze, create an atmosphere that feels both elegant and deeply peaceful. One of the village's most impressive attractions is the exotic garden, located at the top of the mountain. From there, visitors can watch the deep blue sea meeting the French coastline in a view that seems endless. On clear days, the scenery feels so surreal it almost looks painted. Beyond its beauty, Ys also carries a rich historical heritage. Its elevated position helped protect residents from invasions during the Middle Ages, and to this day, the village preserves its ancient fortified appearance. What makes Ys truly fascinating is how harmonious everything feels. The combination of medieval architecture, nature, and the shimmering Mediterranean transforms the village into one of the most romantic and enchanting places in France.
Amid the arid landscapes of Morocco rises a village that feels pulled from an ancient desert legend. Ait Benahadou is a centuries-old clay fortress built along the historic trade routes that once crossed the Sahara. Its earth-toned buildings blend perfectly with the mountains and desert surroundings, creating such an extraordinary setting that it is served as the backdrop for countless famous movies and television series. From a distance, the village almost seems like a natural part of the landscape itself. Its towers, walls, and adobe houses glow in golden tones at sunrise and sunset, turning the entire place into a unique visual spectacle. Walking through the narrow alleys of Ait Benahadou feels like traveling hundreds of years into the past, passing ancient stairways, carved wooden doors, and hidden courtyards. For centuries, the village was an important stop for caravans carrying gold, spices, and goods across the desert. Its traditional architecture managed to withstand the test of time and helped the site become a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But perhaps the most striking thing is the cinematic atmosphere of the place. The silence of the desert, the warmth of the colors, and the almost untouched appearance make Ait Benahadou feel like a setting created entirely by imagination. It's one of those rare places capable of transporting anyone directly into another era of history. In one of the most isolated corners of the North Atlantic lies a village so small and breathtaking that it feels hidden from the rest of the world. Gossadoler, in the Faroe Islands, is surrounded by enormous green mountains, dramatic cliffs, and the restless ocean dominating the landscape around it. For a long time, access to the village was so difficult that residents had to cross mountains on foot to reach neighboring communities. The great symbol of Gossadoler is the incredible Mulefasser waterfall. The water plunges directly from the cliffs into the ocean, creating one of the most surreal and beautiful scenes on Earth. On cloudy days, which are extremely common in the region, the village takes on a mysterious and cinematic atmosphere, as if it were lost in another world. The small houses with grass-covered roofs make the scenery even more special. This traditional Faroe Islands architecture helps the buildings blend perfectly into the surrounding nature. The contrast between the vibrant green fields, the gray mountains, and the deep blue sea creates unforgettable landscapes in every direction. But what truly makes Gossadoler fascinating is the feeling of complete isolation. The silence, the powerful winds, and the overwhelming scale of nature make anyone realize how small human beings can seem in the face of such wild scenery. It's a place that radiates freedom, mystery, and a beauty impossible to forget. Clinging to the cliffs of the Italian coastline, Manarola seems to defy logic itself. The colorful houses stacked one upon another create a breathtaking setting along the Mediterranean Sea,
forming one of Italy's most iconic landscapes. Small, charming, and surrounded by vineyards and mountains, this village of Cinquerte captivates visitors at first sight. The vibrant buildings, painted in shades of yellow, pink, orange, and red, become even more beautiful when reflected in the deep blue sea. At sunset, the sunlight bathes the facades in golden tones, turning the entire village into a stunning spectacle. Walking through its narrow alleys is a unique experience, filled with small restaurants, fishing boats, and viewpoints, offering unbelievable views of the Italian coast. Despite its peaceful appearance, Manarola has a long history connected to fishing and wine production. The terraces carved into the surrounding hillsides reveal generations of effort to adapt human life to such challenging geography. Everything seems improbably balanced between the rocks and the sea. But perhaps Manarola's greatest charm is its romantic and welcoming atmosphere. The sound of the waves, the aroma of Italian food, and the cinematic scenery create a feeling that's difficult to describe. It's one of those places that makes anyone slow down simply to appreciate the simple and extraordinary beauty of the Mediterranean. Perched atop a hill overlooking the Mediterranean, Sidi Bou Said looks like a living painting in shades of blue and white. This charming Tunisian village is famous for its white buildings with deep blue doors and windows, creating such a striking visual identity that it has become one of the most beautiful settings in North Africa. The narrow and peaceful streets are filled with flowers, traditional cafes, and small artisan shops. Walking through Sidi Bou Said feels like exploring a Mediterranean labyrinth where every corner reveals another stunning view of the sea shining in the distance. The contrast between the white walls and the blue sky creates a light and almost surreal atmosphere, especially during sunset. The village also holds a rich artistic and cultural heritage. For decades, writers, musicians, and painters found inspiration in its landscapes and calm atmosphere. Many cafes still preserve that bohemian spirit today, offering panoramic views that feel impossible to forget. But perhaps the most special thing about Sidi Bou Said is the sense of tranquility it radiates. Even welcoming visitors from all around the world, the village maintains a slow and inviting rhythm. The distant sound of the waves, the Mediterranean breeze, and the simple beauty of its streets make anyone feel as though they've discovered a hidden refuge between the desert and the sea. Hidden among the mountains of Portugal's Serra do Acour, Piodao feels like a secret village lost in time. Known as the Nativity Village, it amazes visitors with its small schist-stone houses stacked along the hillsides, creating a cozy and completely unique landscape unlike anywhere else in the country. Seen from afar, the village appears to rise naturally from the mountain itself. The dark stone buildings contrast beautifully with the blue-painted doors and windows, creating a distinctive visual identity. The narrow and steep streets lead to small squares, ancient stairways, and silent corners where time seems to move more slowly. At night, the lights from the houses illuminate the mountainside, transforming Piodao into a true fairy tale setting. The village's isolation helped preserve ancient traditions and customs for centuries. For a long time, reaching the area was extremely difficult, which kept its architecture and way of life almost untouched. This sense of authenticity is exactly what makes Piodao so special. But the village's greatest charm may be its peaceful atmosphere. Surrounded by nature and far from the fast pace of large cities, Piodao radiates a rare sense of calm. It's the kind of place where every detail, from the stone houses to the sound of the wind in the mountains, seems to tell ancient stories of Portugal. Many consider Castle Combe the most beautiful village in England, and it only takes a few minutes walking through its streets to understand why. With its golden stone cottages, ancient bridges, and immaculate gardens, the place feels like it came straight out of a medieval fairy tale. Most impressive of all, there are almost no visible modern buildings, making the village appear frozen in another era. At the center of the village, a small stream flows gently through the landscape, reflecting the historic houses and creating an incredibly peaceful atmosphere. The narrow stone streets, old lampposts, and flower-covered buildings make every corner look like a movie set, something that has literally happened many times, as Castle Combe has served as a filming location for famous productions. The village was founded centuries ago and prospered thanks to the wool industry during the Middle Ages. Despite the passing of time, it has managed to preserve its traditional appearance almost perfectly intact. Walking there feels like traveling into the past, surrounded by historical details everywhere you look. But perhaps Castle Combe's greatest charm is the silence and calm that fill the air. Without large crowds or urban noise, the village radiates a cozy and nostalgic feeling. It's one of those rare places where everything seems simpler, more beautiful, and unbelievably peaceful.
At the foot of one of the world's most famous mountains, Zermatt feels like a village created specifically to amaze. Surrounded by the Swiss Alps and dominated by the majestic silhouette of the Matterhorn, this small village combines breathtaking natural scenery with an alpine charm that captivates visitors in every season. In winter, Zermatt transforms into a true snow-covered paradise. Illuminated wooden chalets, peaceful streets, and completely white mountains create a picture-perfect setting. In summer, green meadows, crystal-clear lakes, and alpine hiking trails reveal a completely different, yet equally spectacular landscape. One of the village's most unique features is that regular cars are practically non-existent there. Transportation is mainly done through electric vehicles and small trains, helping preserve the silence and pure mountain air of the region. This makes walking through the streets of Zermatt an even more relaxing and enjoyable experience. Beyond its natural beauty, the village also carries a strong tradition connected to mountaineering. The Matterhorn has attracted adventurers from all over the world for decades, making Zermatt a symbol of alpine exploration. But what truly makes this place unforgettable is the feeling of being surrounded by gigantic and flawless nature. In Zermatt, every window seems to reveal an impossible landscape, as if Switzerland itself had been designed to look like a dream.
Built directly into the rocky slopes of a mountain, Bocairent is one of Spain's most surprising villages. Seen from afar, it looks as though the houses were carved from the rocks themselves, creating a breathtaking and almost unbelievable landscape. Its ancient earth-toned buildings blend perfectly into the natural surroundings, giving the village a medieval atmosphere full of character. The narrow, maze-like streets are an open invitation to get lost among stairways, tunnels, and tiny stone passageways. Walking through Bocairent feels like exploring an ancient fortress hidden among the mountains. The village has preserved many of its medieval features, and every corner seems to hold stories from centuries ago. One of the region's most curious attractions is the mysterious caves carved into the cliffs, known as the Covetes dels Moros. To this day, there is debate about their true purpose, though many believe they were used as storage spaces or shelters hundreds of years ago. These caves make Bocairent feel even more intriguing. Despite its historical appearance, the village has a peaceful and welcoming atmosphere. From its highest points, visitors can admire incredible views of the surrounding mountains and valleys, especially at sunset, when the golden light makes everything feel even more cinematic. Bukhayrent is one of those places that impresses not only through beauty, but also through the sense of mystery and authenticity that lives on in every stone of its ancient streets.
Hidden in the heart of the Swiss Alps, Wengen feels like a village created to represent everything people imagine when they think of Switzerland. Surrounded by enormous mountains, green forests, and snow-covered landscapes for much of the year, this small alpine village radiates a sense of tranquility that is hard to find anywhere else in the world. One of the most special things about Wengen is that cars are not allowed in the village. Access is mainly by train, helping preserve the peaceful and incredibly pleasant atmosphere. Walking through streets lined with wooden chalets, flower-filled balconies, and spectacular mountain views makes everything feel like the perfect movie setting. During winter, Wengen transforms into a world-famous ski destination, attracting visitors from around the globe. In summer, hiking trails, green meadows, and waterfalls reveal a completely different yet equally breathtaking landscape. In every season, the fresh mountain air and the grandeur of the Alps dominate the experience. From the village, it's possible to admire legendary peaks of the region, such as the Jungfrau, creating views that seem unreal. Watching the sunrise illuminate the snow-covered mountains is one of those moments that remains in memory forever. But perhaps Wengen's greatest charm lies in its simplicity. Without excess or noise, the village transforms nature, silence, and traditional architecture into an unforgettable experience, showing exactly why the Swiss Alps are considered some of the most beautiful places on Earth.
Hidden among mountains and forests in rural Japan, Gokayama is a village that preserves ancient traditions in a truly remarkable way. Like Shirakawa-go, it is famous for its Gasho-zukuri houses, traditional homes with enormous steep roofs designed to withstand the region's heavy snowfall. The result is a unique landscape that seems untouched for centuries. During winter, Gokayama transforms into an almost magical setting. Snow covers the rooftops, trees, and narrow village paths, while smoke rising from the houses creates a warm and peaceful atmosphere. Everything feels calm, far removed from the fast pace of Japan's major cities. What makes the village even more fascinating is that many of these historic homes are still inhabited by local families. Some houses are over 200 years old and preserve traditional construction techniques passed down from generation to generation. Life in Gokayama remains deeply connected to nature and the ancient customs of rural Japan. Beyond its visual beauty, the village is also known for keeping rare cultural traditions alive, including folk songs and historic festivals. Walking through its streets feels like stepping into a version of Japan that almost no longer exists. But perhaps what makes Gokayama truly special is its authenticity. Unlike heavily touristy destinations, the village maintains a simple, quiet, and genuine atmosphere. It's a place where tradition is still part of daily life, creating a rare and deeply enchanting experience.
On the southeastern coast of Malta lies a fishing village so colorful it looks hand-painted. Marsa is famous for its traditional boats called luzus, wooden fishing vessels decorated in vibrant colors that gently sway on the crystal-clear waters of the Mediterranean. The harbor filled with these boats creates one of the most beautiful and authentic landscapes on the island. The streets of the village have a peaceful and welcoming atmosphere. Small seaside restaurants serve fresh seafood while local residents continue the fishing traditions that have existed there for centuries. Walking along the waterfront while watching the boats move across the sparkling sea creates an immediate feeling of calm. One curious detail about the luzus is the painted eyes on the front of the boats. According to ancient Mediterranean traditions, these symbols were meant to protect fishermen during their journeys at sea. This small cultural detail makes Marsaxlokk feel even more unique. The village becomes even livelier on Sundays when a famous local market fills the area with fish, handmade crafts, and traditional Maltese products. The contrast between the simple buildings, colorful boats, and the deep blue Mediterranean creates an incredibly photogenic setting. But perhaps Marsaxlokk's greatest charm is its authenticity. Even in such a popular country, the village manages to preserve a peaceful and traditional rhythm, offering the feeling of discovering a genuine piece of Mediterranean life.
With its ancient walls, cobblestone streets, and perfectly preserved medieval houses, Dinan feels like a town pulled directly from the Middle Ages. Located in the Brittany region of France, this village enchants visitors with its historic atmosphere and timeless appearance. Walking through Dinan feels like stepping into a medieval setting where every street holds centuries of history. The historic center is filled with half-timbered houses, small squares, and charming shops that preserve the village's traditional character. One of the most famous areas is the steep street known as Rue de Gersois, lined with workshops, cafes, and old flower-covered houses. Following this street downhill leads visitors to the small harbor along the Rance River, one of the most peaceful and beautiful spots in the region. Dinan's ancient walls offer incredible views of the town's rooftops and the surrounding green landscapes. For centuries, these fortifications helped protect the village from invasions, and even today they give the town a powerful and cinematic appearance. But what truly makes Dinan special is its welcoming atmosphere. Despite carrying such a strong medieval heritage, the village feels light and romantic, especially at sunset when the lights begin to illuminate the stone streets. It's one of those rare places where history, architecture, and tranquility blend perfectly together, creating the feeling that the past is still alive in every detail of the town. In the heart of the Alsace region, Iguisheim feels like a village created to represent the very idea of European perfection. Surrounded by vineyards and filled with colorful half-timbered houses, this small French village enchants visitors with its circular streets, ancient fountains, and fairy tale atmosphere. What makes Iguisheim so special is its unusual layout. The streets form concentric circles around the historic center, creating a charming labyrinth filled with flowers, tiny balconies, and incredibly colorful facades. Walking through the village feels like exploring a living painting, where every corner somehow seems even more beautiful than the last. During spring and summer, the village bursts with color as flowers appear almost everywhere. In winter, lights and Christmas decorations transform Iguisheim into a magical setting that looks straight out of a movie. It's no surprise that many consider it one of the most beautiful villages in France. Beyond its beauty, Iguisheim also has a long tradition connected to winemaking. The surrounding vineyards are part of the famous Alsace wine route, adding even more charm and identity to the region. But perhaps the most impressive thing is the welcoming atmosphere of the place. Despite its small size, Iguisheim radiates warmth, tranquility, and an almost unreal sense of enchantment. It's the kind of village where every detail seems carefully preserved to keep the magic of the past alive.
On the banks of the Moselle River, surrounded by vineyard-covered hills, Koschum looks like a village pulled directly from a German legend. The great highlight of the landscape is the imposing Reichsburg Castle, towering above the town from the top of a hill and making the entire place feel like a medieval fantasy setting.
The colorful, traditional houses, narrow cobblestone streets, and reflections of the buildings on the calm river waters create an incredibly charming atmosphere. Walking through the historic center of Koshim feels like traveling back in time, passing small squares, cozy cafes, and historic buildings that preserve centuries of history. The castle is one of the region's most impressive landmarks. With its tall towers and panoramic views over the Moselle Valley, it strengthens the feeling of being inside a medieval fairy tale. At sunset, the golden light falling across the vineyards and river makes the scenery even more cinematic. Beyond its beauty, Koshim is also known for its wine tradition. The region produces some of Germany's most famous wines, and the vineyards spread across the hillsides are an essential part of the village's identity. But perhaps Koshim's greatest charm is its perfect combination of nature and history. The river, mountains, castle, and traditional architecture create a landscape so harmonious it feels as though it were carefully designed by nature itself. It's one of those places that makes anyone feel as if they've stepped into an ancient story filled with magic.
Surrounded by some of the highest peaks in the Swiss Alps, Sauce-Fee feels like a village hidden at the top of the world. Known as the Pearl of the Alps, it amazes visitors with its combination of gigantic mountains, eternal glaciers, and wooden chalets that create an absolutely spectacular setting in every season. During winter, Sauce-Fee transforms into a true white paradise. Snow covers the rooftops, streets, and surrounding mountains, creating landscapes that seem pulled straight from a dream. In summer, green meadows and alpine trails reveal another side of the village, filled with flowers, crystal-clear streams, and breathtaking panoramic views. Like other traditional alpine villages in Switzerland, Sauce-Fee allows almost no regular cars in its center. This keeps the atmosphere peaceful and incredibly pleasant, strengthening the feeling of tranquility and connection with nature. The enormous glaciers surrounding the village are among the region's greatest highlights. In many places, the ice-covered mountains seem to completely dominate the horizon, creating a powerful and unforgettable landscape. But perhaps the most impressive thing about Sauce-Fee is its sense of purity. The cold mountain air, the silence of the peaks, and the grandeur of the Alps make everything feel calmer and more intense at the same time. It's one of those places where nature reveals its beauty in an almost surreal way.
Small, colorful, and built almost directly above the sea, Tellaro is one of the hidden gems of the Italian coastline. Unlike more famous and crowded destinations, this village preserves a peaceful and authentic atmosphere, as if it were still protected from time and mass tourism. The pastel-colored houses seem to emerge directly from the rocks, creating an incredibly romantic setting along the Mediterranean. The narrow and silent streets lead to tiny squares, ancient stairways, and viewpoints overlooking the deep blue sea. In many places, the sound of waves crashing against the rocks completely dominates the atmosphere, creating a sense of peace that's difficult to find elsewhere in Italy. One of the village's most iconic symbols is the small church built right on the edge of the rocks, almost touching the sea. During storms, the waves come so close that the scenery feels cinematic. This intense connection between the village and the Mediterranean is exactly what makes Tellaro so special. An artistic atmosphere is also part of the village's identity. Over the years, writers and artists found inspiration in its silent landscapes and the simple charm of its colorful buildings. But perhaps Tellaro's greatest beauty lies in its delicacy. Everything feels small, welcoming, and perfectly fitted between the sea and the rocks. It's one of those places that doesn't need extravagance to impress. The beauty is found in simplicity, silence, and the feeling of discovering a hidden secret of Italy. In the heart of Colombia lies a village so colorful it looks hand-painted. Guatapé enchants visitors with its vibrant streets, houses decorated with embossed artwork, and landscapes surrounded by lakes and mountains. Every building features bold colors and unique details, transforming the village into one of the happiest and most visually striking places in South America. One of the most fascinating elements of Guatapé are the zócalos, decorative panels placed along the lower parts of the houses. They depict animals, flowers, everyday objects, and cultural symbols from the region, giving each street its own personality. Walking through the village feels like exploring a giant open-air art gallery. But the region's greatest natural attraction is the enormous Piedra del Peñol, a gigantic monolith rising dramatically above the landscape. From the top, the view reveals a maze of islands and crystal-clear waters that seems endless. The contrast between the blue lakes and the green mountains creates a truly spectacular landscape. Despite its vibrant colors and energetic atmosphere, Guatapé also feels peaceful and welcoming. Cafes, small squares, and boats slowly gliding across the water complete the perfect scenery of this Colombian village. What makes Guatapé truly remarkable is how everything seems to celebrate life through color. It's a place that radiates joy in every detail, proving that beauty exists not only in natural landscapes, but also in the creativity and culture of the people who live there.
Hidden among the mountains of northern Morocco, Chefchaouen looks like a village born from a blue dream. Known worldwide as the Blue City, it captivates visitors with its streets, stairways, and houses painted in countless shades of blue, creating a unique and almost surreal atmosphere. Walking through its narrow alleys feels like stepping into a completely different world, unlike anywhere else on Earth. The contrast between the deep blue buildings and the surrounding mountains turns every corner of the village into an incredibly photogenic landscape. During the day, the sunlight constantly changes the tones of the walls, making the entire place feel alive. At night, lanterns and soft lights make everything feel even more magical and mysterious. There are many theories about the origin of the tradition of painting the town blue. Some believe the color symbolizes spirituality and peace, while others say it helped cool the environment and keep insects away. Whatever the explanation may be, the visual result is simply unforgettable. Beyond its beauty, Chefchaouen has a calm and welcoming atmosphere. Local markets, traditional cafes, and the aroma of spices create a complete sensory experience filled with culture and authenticity. But perhaps the village's greatest charm is the feeling of tranquility it radiates. Among the silent blue streets in the mountains of Morocco, everything seems to slow down. It's one of those rare places capable of feeling exotic, mysterious, and deeply welcoming all at once.
At the far north of Norway lies a tiny fishing village that seems to defy reality itself. Hamnøy, located in the Lofoten Islands, is surrounded by gigantic mountains rising dramatically from the icy sea, creating one of the most breathtaking landscapes on the planet. The traditional red fishermen's cabins scattered along the coast make the scenery even more iconic. During winter, Hamnøy transforms into a true natural spectacle. Snow covers the mountain peaks, while the northern lights dance across the sky in shades of green and violet, creating images that seem impossible to believe. In summer, the midnight sun illuminates the landscape for endless hours, giving the village an almost magical atmosphere. Despite its cinematic appearance, Hamnøy remains a simple village, deeply connected to fishing traditions. The anchored boats, the scent of the sea, and the silence of the cold waters help preserve the authentic feeling of the place. Everything feels calm, isolated, and profoundly connected to nature.
The contrast between the red cabins, the dark blue sea, and the snow-covered mountains creates a visual combination that is simply unforgettable. In many moments, the village looks more like a painting than a real place. But perhaps the most impressive thing about Hanoi is its overwhelming sense of grandeur. Nature completely dominates the landscape, reminding anyone who visits that the planet still hides places capable of feeling like lost worlds.
Few villages in the world look as unusual as Setenil de las Bodegas in southern Spain. What makes this place so astonishing is the fact that many of its houses were built literally beneath enormous rocks. Instead of removing the mountain stones, residents transformed the natural formations into part of the buildings themselves, creating a setting that feels unique and almost unbelievable. The narrow streets pass beneath gigantic rock formations that seem suspended above visitors' heads. In some places, the rocks serve as natural roofs for restaurants, cafes, and homes. Walking through the village creates a strange and fascinating sensation, as if nature and architecture had perfectly merged over the centuries. Beyond its extraordinary appearance, Setenil has a long history connected to Moorish occupation in medieval Spain. Its strategic location, protected by mountains, helped the village resist invasions for a long time. Even today, the place preserves this authentic and historic atmosphere. The white houses contrasting against the enormous dark rocks create incredibly photogenic landscapes, especially at sunset, when golden light illuminates the streets and highlights the dramatic stone formations even more. But perhaps the most fascinating thing about Setenil de las Bodegas is its originality. There are many beautiful villages around the world, but very few create such a different and unexpected feeling. It's a place where the mountain itself became part of daily life, transforming the village into something truly unique.
The world is filled with places that seem to defy reality, and these incredible villages are proof that there are still landscapes capable of leaving us speechless. From snow-covered mountains to colorful seaside communities, every destination on this list shows how culture, nature, and history can come together to create truly magical places. And what's most fascinating is realizing that, despite being so different from one another, all of these villages share the same sense of wonder and tranquility. Now tell us, which of these villages would you most like to visit in person? And from what part of the world are you watching this video? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the Beyond Reality channel and turn on notifications because there are still many incredible places waiting to be discovered. See you in the next video.